like almost 2,000 claims, we had about 72% that had paid by insurance and only 87 of them denied. And those were particular to really two local Medicaid plans. So pretty positive on that. And we had less than 1% of those that had self-pay balances. So one of the things that I had been looking at was when I set up my initial kind of self-pay statement hold rules, I only set it up assuming that those were claims related to COVID, but a lot of the payers around here were promoting people to use telemedicine. So they were covering copays for that. So I put some initial holds in place. And then as far as COVID claims on the professional side, there was only 78 of those that were released, and all of those paid as well. So that's kind of what I looked at before we go ahead and release the rest of our telemedicine claims.
Well, CMS said at least that they aren't doing any post-payment audits. I don't know. I'll have to ask everybody on this call. They issued a press release and said that.
Well, so I'll be honest, I haven't released any of my Medicare claims because I think there is some stuff coming out next week in terms of them lessening their restrictions for audio only. So those were all under telehealth codes, and I wasn't going to bill those out. So I think on Tuesday, they were supposed to give some additional guidance on that.
Yeah, I think they did earlier.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Good.
I got some people digging into that because they're also changing payments for phone only, but then they're not changing RVUs, which, you know, normally those two are linked together, but they're not. So it's challenging to parse through some of this.
Yeah, there's a thing called the Rack Monitor. They have Rack Monitor Mondays, sounds like some of you are familiar with it. And they had an attorney that, you know, and he said, well, 97% of what is the telemedicine stuff is being done incorrectly because there's 200 different payers. There's all this confusion. How he knew that, I don't know, but that's what he claimed at least. So found that interesting. But he's a Michigan attorney, so I'm sure he was telling the truth.
Of course.
They all do.
Anybody else on that front want to weigh in?
So Kelly, quick question for you. For those ones that you're holding, are you planning to go back and actually update some of those telephone or those, you know, audio only ones if Medicare changes based on that? Or are you planning to just build them out as are? Because that's one thing that the organization I work with has been going back and forth debating on. Okay, as the, you know, payer requirements change so much, is it worth going back and changing past things, or just start everything from that point forward and changing both, either from just like a coding review or also from a claim requirement review, since they also tend to change together?
Well, so the Medicare stuff I hadn't ever built out, so we would update all of those based on whatever the guidelines are that we can. Aetna changed some. There's a couple of payers that have changed recently on the place of service requirement and went back to wanting O2. I'm not going back and changing those.
Mm-hmm. So we've decided to, just the volume's too high for us.
But I would say we probably have about 35,000 telehealth, telemedicine visits that we've done between March 1st and today, or April 30th. And I think we've only released 15,000 of them. So most of my stuff was holding anyway.
Kelly, is that a significant increase from what you used to do?
Oh, yeah.
How much? So what, I'm really interested because you read about it. You know.
We maybe used to bill out 50 a month.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And what's interesting for us, I don't know, Kelly, if you've seen the same thing, obviously our phone and video encounters are way up. I mean, just from essentially 0 to, I think we're doing, 1,000 a week or something like that now, maybe more, but our e-visits are down by like 70%. I think it's probably because people have an option. They have something besides, oh, I can basically text message my doctor through Epic or through the portal, or I can actually talk to him on the phone. Oh, I'll talk to him on the phone, so that's been something fascinating that I didn't necessarily anticipate, that type of drop off in our e-visit offering, because that we had seen a lot of growth in the last year on that. And basically we were doing e-visits through retail in the past because a lot of payers wouldn't cover it. So that's been an interesting trend for us.
Do you think that trend is going to keep up, David? In other words, or do you think it's going to change, go back to what it was? And I'll pose that to everybody because I read things and, some people say it's going to change, we're going to go back to red. So what do you think?
I think it's highly contingent on payer policies. If they keep paying for phone and video, I think that would you rather text your doctor or would you rather actually talk to him? So if payers keep paying for phone and video, yeah, I think e-visits essentially become not quite obsolete, but almost, because why do that?
And that's what a lot of the leadership here says, oh, this is great, we're going to keep it up. But I said, that's all contingent on whether we're going to continue getting paid. So I know the executive leadership thought process here is that we're going to keep it up. I just don't know that we'll continue to be paid for it like we're being paid now.
It would be hard to go back, I feel like, but that's another subject for another day, probably.
Well, and I think so, like our own administered Blue Cross Blue Shield plan had their own portal. So when you wanted an e-visit for primary care stuff, you had to use their portal. I couldn't even use a UT Southwestern doctor. So there's kind of two competing things there, is that, does Blue Cross Blue Shield now not pay us because you have to use their portal, or would they pay for me to get the same visit from a UT Southwestern doctor? So there's a couple of conflicts there. Just, I don't know how you guys insurance works, but ours, they would want us to call the Blue Cross Blue Shield portal.
I mean, Mark, you're in a smaller metro area. You're really you're the main health system there. Is it different for you, maybe?
We've seen a tremendous utilization of increase in our telehealth. Right, Ruben has been one of the national sponsors of it, so she's been very engaged. But it's just gone off the walls like for everyone else. What we've seen, I spoke to a colleague. His wife is a pediatrician, and the patients absolutely love it. They don't have to drive 3 or 4 hours from rural areas to get into our organization. So I think there's going to be so much demand from a lot of our population to continue. How it looks is the big question I'm hearing too. And the thought of my mind is, the Medicare population as well. So all of us that have provider-based services and clinics and provider-based environments, we could just see all that revenue strip out that we've been dependent on for margin for years and years. So I think that's another challenge we're going to have coming out of this is why wouldn't payers want to support it? Because it reduces the cost of care for primary care and low complexity consults.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of, I read an article about this, and I might have talked about this on one of these town halls. So if I did and you guys all heard it, forgive me, was an article mentioning that Medicare had long been holding back, not because of Medicare's desire, but because of the Congressional Budget Office. They felt it would drive up utilization. So I guess if that proves out correct, that could offset, Mark, if you've got a decrease of 20% in cost, but an increase of 50% in primary care utilization or something like that, that would make sense to have a hesitancy. But I think the good news here is it's essentially actuarial data via trial by fire. So the payers are going to get their data now to assess whether this is worth continuing.
Well, the other thing of this is like coronavirus doesn't just go away tomorrow. So to think that they're going to turn the switch off and then no one's going to have virtual visits and then they have an increase in COVID, it's like that would be nonsensical. So that'd probably be the other thing. I don't know, that would come to mind for me.
I would say that depending on where you are, certain patients aren't willing to come to the office. That's what we're seeing in New York, for instance. And while Cornell been pretty mature on televisits, I mean, now people are saying that's all we do is televisits.
I think patients are going to be, as consumers of the insurance carriers, maybe a driver in this as well. I think they may not want to go back, and they will expect their insurance carriers and to pay for this type of service.
Agreed. Who's open? Has anyone opened elective surgeries up again yet? I know Laura, you're on. Have you?
Monday.
Monday.
This is Jay. I'm
Monday.
from Beaumont Health in Michigan, and we announced that we opened up elective surgeries last week. And I'm privy to some of the numbers that come in, and that we saw a sharp jump in inpatient, outpatient charges just literally the day after it was announced.
Our governor extended our stay at home for another 2 weeks in the state of Arizona, so we're that's not lifted at a minimum until May 15th.
Oh, I thought you were off. I'm sorry. I thought because Ryan was I thought it was Ryan was golfing and with Mel in Arizona. I thought maybe they were okay, but apparently,
No, May 1st was when the governor had to review the executive order, and he chose to extend it for another 2 weeks.
Okay, that was my bad, my assumption.
And I'm in Georgia, and hospitals have gotten the green light to start elective surgeries again.
Yeah, Georgia and Tennessee are like different worlds, though, Bill. So it's like a different country. It's like
We're surviving. It's not too crazy yet.
just doing whatever they want, apparently. Okay, that sounds good. No, that's helpful. I think maybe next week we'll have more data on what's happening with electives, like how much is coming in, people are coming back, like how busy it is. Maybe that'd be helpful. Anything else on this particular subject, or do you want to switch?
Kaylin, did you have a comment? Looked like you started talking earlier.
He's always got a comment. It's just a question of whether he's on
Can't
mute
hear
or
you,
not.
Can't hear you, man.
Kaylin, you're not muted, but you're not coming through.
He'll
Never
email
mind.
you.
Never
He,
mind.
I messaged him privately, noted that he was talking about no audio coming through. He messaged back that might have been intended to be the group that his mic's busted. So, Kaylin, you want to change that to the group if you're trying to not talk to just me.
I think his mic is broken. Okay, that's fine.
So we still talking about denials?
We are, but we can move.
Yeah, I'm curious if others what others think will happen with our payers and their behavior, right? So I saw some recent reports that this last quarter, finished strong for the payer industry as opposed to our industry of providers.
Profit.
So, but as the unemployment rate goes up and business closures go up and enrollments go down, what do we anticipate the payers will do, right, around pre-auth and and authorization of admissions, things of that nature? So I'm speculating that it's going to get more onerous to get authorizations as an effort to really manage the bounce back of utilization. So that's my thought. I just want to see what others are thinking on it. And the other thought was, what are the number of people that have COBRA but choose not to elect it, and 2 months after the service will get non-coverage denial? So that's the other thought around payers.
I don't know. I'm doing a podcast with one of the leaders from United Healthcare, so I'll ask him. So, Mark, if you want to join that, it'd be fun to have you in there.
You might get a United Health Group cancellation.
He's like over the West. He doesn't have anything to do with Mark's territory.
When is
Okay.
it?
I don't know yet. He said he'd do it, so I gotta get it scheduled.
Let's talk offline. Maybe I could be the bad cop. You can be the good cop.
There you go.
Oh gosh, he came to one of our meetings. He got beat up. Like, he's a good guy. He did a good job. He did a good job. I think Laura was there. Sean was there. Who was there? That's pretty good. That was like a year ago. That was a good one. All right. Let's talk about the uninsured enroll. What do you call it? Registry and payment.
So I do have a question. We had a little call today. So we've got our payer plan set up and claim edits and all of that stuff. But I think one of the things that is interesting is that to be covered on outpatient claims, you have to use one of these 3 diagnoses, and on inpatient, you have to use one of the 2 diagnoses. But some of those diagnoses were not to be used until April 1st. And this goes back to February 4th. So I'm not for sure how I'm supposed to code that.
Yeah, this is Allison from MSK. We were just having that same discussion. And so our compliance guru said they had homework this weekend and they were going to come back to us with a recommendation. So I'm happy to share with you what we're going to do, because we have quite a few patients that are pre-April 1, and we have that same dilemma. So a bunch of folks are reading a lot this weekend, I guess. They did not choose me to do that, thank God. So, but I can share with the group what I find out.
That would be great.
That's like your legal team, or who's doing the reading, Allison?
Legal and compliance. They said that they were going to come together with their recommendation for us.
At MSK, like at Memorial Sloan Kettering, your group.
Right,
Okay.
right.
That's good. Okay.
So
Has
the group I
everyone-
work with in Indiana is choosing to have 2 different diagnoses, one before and one after. So they're after April 1st. So before they're using the B9729, I think it is. And then after April 1st, they're using the U07.1.
But if you read it literally, they wouldn't cover that B97.
I think they're just kind of saying that that's their interpretation with it and taking the risk on some of them from before 4.1. And then of course there's a couple other COVID-19 diagnosis that could be on there too, depending on the testing that occurred for those.
Well, I would just say be careful with submitting anything you don't think is going to get paid or may not be coded right, because you can't appeal any of that stuff. So they say one submission and that's it.
So you get one chance to submit a list of claims and people, and then you're like, that's it?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, you can't appeal it if they don't pay it. So
did we lose Kelly there? Am I the only one who's Kelly? Your screen froze for a minute.
is it better now?
There you go.
So basically, you can continue to submit claims. You just can't you can't submit something twice or appeal it if they deny it.
So you got one shot, basically. You're saying.
Yep.
I also looked to notice that if you aren't attached to Optum Pay, it takes 7 to 10 days to do that, to get ACH payment. Did everyone see that?
Yeah, and I believe it has to go through Optum, at least.
It does, and to get paid, you got to submit that whole, and so it takes 7 days to get set up on ACH. So you better do that now if you're not in the Optum Pay system, whatever that means. I don't.
And then you also have to vet that they can't have other coverage, which creates an interesting conundrum, because could they get Medicaid? If they've been laid off and their income is now 0, how long do you sit waiting on your local Department of Job and Family Services or whatever it is in your state to assess Medicaid eligibility? Just at the time that you submit, or do you have to sit and wait while that processes? And they're all
for
swamped.
me, we're pinging it, and if they don't have it, we're submitting it. So
Yeah.
And that's fair. It's a question you got to ask yourself is all I'm. Yeah.
It doesn't. I mean, the way it reads is your attestation is you're attesting to the fact that they didn't have Medicaid at the time. So it doesn't say you couldn't try to apply for Medicaid after the fact, but that's the way it read when I read it. I don't know if anyone else took the same, but Allison, it might help that your legal team's gonna go through it. Maybe have a different opinion.
Yeah, we said if we did the eligibility check, if we didn't have anything, then let's move forward. If they get it later, then we can have that discussion and see what happens. But if we have everything documented that they didn't have it through our checking, then we're good to submit.
This could be one of those things where they approve almost everything, and then a year later they're going to go back through and audit all of it and see who had Medicaid or Medicare or Blue Cross, and then send you an audit. I mean, honestly, I'm trying to think how they're going to do this. I don't see another way. And I think
they audit us all the time anyway, so just bring it on. Right.
True, but like I would see they would get a ton of slack if they were denying a bunch of these. That's what my sense would be, that they would take a huge PR hit for that in the press, like that they were denying claims ahead now. But they're not going to get a big press hit a year from now when they come back and try to collect money. It's just, that's what I'm thinking, but I don't know. Feel free to disagree. No one's talking, so either you're agreeing or not.
I'm agreeing.
Julie's agreeing with me. Anyone else? Kalen agreed. He couldn't say anything, but he agreed.
I agree.
All right. Allison, did you learn anything else, or anybody else learn anything else about the registry or the whole self-pay population?
I had to really work with our data because we had a real challenge for those early COVID patients of knowing who it was, because we were really looking at diagnosis codes of upper respiratory infection. And so we had a huge problem of trying to go back and figure out who was COVID versus not, because it took us a few weeks to get all of our ducks in a row for a standardized process. So that's where I'm at right now, and I'm going to be vetting the data this weekend to make sure that I have everything, and working with our HIM coding team to go through any cases, because that's been our biggest battle, is trying to make sure we have everyone that we need to submit.
How does anyone handle like the drive-through testing stuff? You're just testing; they're supposed to cover that, right? So how is anyone catching all those people?
So for us, we, in the beginning, and MSK is, we have a very robust testing, both for employees and our patients. So like the employees alone, we have almost 5,000 tests that we've run. So we have special flags that we put on for employees to know about that. But for patients, in the very beginning, we were, everything had to go through infection control. So that's how we figured out how to like grab all of those patients. That was before you had to get, a lot of different people to sign off before you could test a patient. Now it's pretty much, if you're walking in our door, you're getting a swab. It's evolved a lot in 4 weeks. So we've had to, make sure that we can capture everything through all of those changes.
And our drive-in sites managed through our affiliate who does our urgent cares. So I don't have a line of sight into that to give you feedback. Sorry.
I just didn't know what was happening with that. I think that'd be an area of like trying to identify all those people could be a challenge.
Well, I mean, we just pull in everybody that doesn't have coverage that has that CPT code on the HAR. So that's how we report, just to see what diagnoses are on those HARs. And then we were going to go back and double check them.
But wasn't the issue before, and maybe I'm mixing this up, that we didn't have we wouldn't necessarily have a diagnosis code that was?
But we still have the CPT code for the actual
I guess you have the
COVID
charge.
test.
Oh, okay,
So
right.
basically I'm pulling by charge and then looking at diagnosis.
Just look at charges. Yeah, you're just looking at charges. Okay.
Yeah, the harder thing is to get the E&Ms around those visits, especially for the ones where they ordered a COVID test out of the E&M, where you might have that, I forgot what the Z code is the secondary diagnosis. So they came in with a respiratory infection. they decided to test because maybe you've been exposed to someone or you had symptoms, making sure you get paid for the E&Ms is harder than getting the diagnosis on the test themselves. Because it's harder to find the E&Ms to make sure that, because we have some reports that we can see if an order was generated out of that visit, a COVID order was generated. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else on that subject? Doesn't sound like it's worth talking about more. Okay, what else do we want to cover? Anything else?
Yeah, I've got a question. Uh, who here amongst the group is actively using AI and bots in the process? You know, I looked at this a year and a half ago, and our work was so fragmented that we didn't have scale, so it was really hard to find spots. And then we're reviewing it for online registrations and some pre-op. But I'm really curious in terms of who's really been successful in the group in automation and bot work.
So we've got 2 things that we use bots for. We do screen scraping for claim status inquiry, because what we got from the clearinghouse wasn't enough. And then we've also done a process here to find Medicaid eligibility. So if you just send the standard 270, it's going to be very discrete name. And here in Texas, we have a lot of Hispanic names. So the bot goes through several iterations to see if it can ping the Medicaid website to find that. So those are the 2 bots we have up and running. Another bot that we're putting in place right now is one to help with submitting attachments. So if I have to submit an attachment via the portal, because I can't submit it electronically, then we are basically using the attachments functionality in Epic, and I'm trying to get a bot that could then go upload those to the payer websites.
Yeah, Mark, oh, sorry, go ahead.
We're in Cerner, and so we have less of that fun functionality. So we partnered with Colburn Hill, and so Colburn Hill provided a priority tool for us. In addition to the prioritization tool, we have bots as well. So mainly we started off with same type of thing you were talking about, Kelly, with eligibility. We're working on some of the same work around documentation and providing that documentation. And then we've also just got some internal workflows to sort of correct some of those just pains that we have to deal with internally of the button pushes.
And Mark, we were, in my prior role, we had a bot for eligibility that we were wrapping up, go live about a month before I left there. So I can't speak to long-term success of that, unfortunately. Preliminary success looked good. And then here, prior to Corona, we were looking at bringing some on board. One of the areas actually was around credentialing, because there's a lot of cut and paste and moving fields around for credentialing. But we're also considering claim statusing, kind of like Kelly said. I mean, there's a lot of tools to do that now, but a lot of them are maybe not as sophisticated as one might like. That or a bot could take extra actions besides just doing the status. They could also do the resubmit if the payer never got it or whatever. They can take some extra steps for you that the clearinghouse maybe can't do. So those are some of the 2 we're investigating, but I don't have any in place right now, unfortunately.
Mark, at my firm, we used the statusing bots very successfully. And we did use them to upload notes into our system and even across to our client system. So we had a great experience using them, and they saved a lot of time and allowed us to prioritize our work a lot better than we did before.
So Michael, thanks for joining us. I know you missed it. We actually solved all the self-pay claim submission problem.
Oh, good.
Yep, that's all
Thanks.
done.
So if you could send me a
And-
summary in the chat, that'd be great.
Yeah, Allison's got the summary, so she's just gonna send you the answer.
Perfect.
Yep. I don't know what else did we solve. I feel like we solved something else too, but it's, you know, your cat needed medicine, so there was that problem.
I think we probably moved those 6 and 7s to at least 8s. with this
Exactly.
phone.
Exactly. Now then Mark asked a question about just who's using bots, automation, that kind of thing. So people are just kind of answering what they've been doing in that space.
Got it.
We're about to give birth to our first bot in claims process acknowledgement on Monday. It goes live. I just saw the demo today. It's pretty exciting stuff. But we're having to go payer by payer, and we're home growing it. So it's been an interesting journey, and we're doing it all remote. So it's been we delayed ourselves about a week, but I feel like that's pretty good despite everything else.
Yeah.
They recommend the Epidur.
Sean, any update on data? Where's the trend going? What's happening? Revenue.
There's been a little bit of an update this week versus last week. The gross charges did bottom out. They're starting to creep up a little bit. I don't know what elective procedures they've brought back online or not. I'm not in that know this week. And the cash prediction from based off those gross charges have also turned a corner. I think we've seen the bottom. Last week was the bottom. So I think that's good news.
Yeah.
We're still at the
news.
bottom, but we've seen the bottom.
And that's John Muir in California, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Kaylin, you asked a question. Let me just see if I can read for Jai's new elective revenue. So Jai, this is Beaumont. Has the payer mix shifted from the norm? You may not know that yet. Maybe next week you might know more.
I don't know that. And just to level set, I don't work in revenue cycle. I'm actually the director of innovation and commercialization. I recently started working with not directly working, but trying to work with our revenue cycle. I've connected with some people to try to see what sort of innovation we can bring in that space.
Yep. Well, tell Denise to get in here then.
Will do.
She's not busy.
Actually, I don't know if she's busy or not, but I do know that people working for her, our director of claim denials, she's been pretty slammed.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you know her or not.
Probably not anymore. Not anybody left over there. All right, Adam, I know you had a question. I made you get on camera. You had to have your head on.
Sorry about that. No, I just wanted to give folks kind of a heads up, and I'm by no means a 340B expert, but our 340B experts have combed through some of the recent information, and the 340B applicability or approval process. So if your year ends December 31st and you had a delayed 340B cost report until July 31st, instead of having to wait until October 1st of this year to be approved for the program starting January 1st of next year, you get approved as soon as you submit in July. You'll actually be eligible immediately for 340B benefits, which is going to give folks basically an additional 5 months of eligibility with 340B. And that just recently got released a little while ago, but I just want to make sure y'all are aware that there's an opportunity there to extend the 340B program outside of the kind of the normal process for 340B eligibility.
Cool. Did people know that? I didn't know that. Is that helpful? Hopefully it's helpful. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, if you have any questions, you just reach out to me and I can get you set up with our 340B experts. They know it inside now.
Cool. All right. What else? What else?
Hey, Ben, I can show a picture real quick. Let me just show you a picture. Maybe people want to see a picture.
Is it like a decent picture or like a, like just, let's keep this group?
Yeah, no, it's just I was working on some volume stuff this morning and threw this together. So this is just discharges out of HB. This is not PB. This is hospital billing, and so you can kind of just see in stark terms. We've got these are discharges this year, and these are discharges last year in the ED, inpatient, outpatient, just broad IEOs, and just getting hammered on the hospital billing part of things. So that's what they're facing over there lately. And this is by week. Each line's a week. The most recent week is up the top. So they were kind of cracking along on the volume in late February, and then by the time late March hits, you're not doing so well.
Yeah, it looks like ERs at least come back.
Yeah, it started, like I said, and on the charges side too, we've seen kind of a bottoming out. So I'm hoping those things, and I'm sending this out every week now.
Can I change my score?
Too much red. There's
To
too much
higher
red.
or lower, Mark?
Lower.
Oh. No, this is good. I mean, not good, but it's at least it's helpful. I wonder what will happen. When are they going to open for electives?
I've got a meeting this coming week with some revenue cycle folks that I hope to know more. It's hard to get any meeting with anybody over there right now.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I feel like all I do is be in meetings.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
So I know last week we talked about some of the work from home and maybe some people not being as eligible by their leadership to do it. But I know Epic, if they use Epic, Bill Coles from Epic showed us some reports that they're working on to really not be that detailed user activity report, but roll up by role and then show trending graphs in terms of productivity. That might be something good if you have Epic and you're wanting to look at that. We had some Power BI reports, but the report's pretty nice, and he's going to do some data for me. So in case you're trying to justify people staying at home and their productivity output, they're very nice reports.
Kelly, do those reports, do they look, so many reports in Epic seem to touch productivity and not necessarily effectiveness, or you know what I mean? It's like, oh, a follow-up team member touched 100 accounts today, and if it's like, okay, they touched 100 accounts today, that doesn't tell me that they got paid, that they resubmitted claims, that they moved the needle. You know what I mean? Does it get into anything that would be called productivity?
So what we do, we actually ran Power BI reports. So especially for my professional billing people, we'll go back and look retrospectively 45 days, and you get credit if you were the last user to write a note and the payment comes in after that. So we did some percentage.
Oh, we lost Kelly again.
You know,
Kelly, you froze for a minute there.
Am I still frozen?
There you go. No, you're better.
You're
That's weird. So anyway, we ran some of our own reports just to look at when somebody touches it and when they get a payment, you know, how often did what they touched get a payment. So we have some really nice reports. And if you want the SQL data on that, I'm happy to share it. But on the HB side, it does actually show more about what you touched if you got paid. It just doesn't on the PB side. But if you want the SQL code for the PB stuff, I'll give it to you.
That'd be great.
I would love that.
Not that you have to know how to run it from there, but you could hand it to somebody who does. Because Michael, I'm sure you're not running SQL reports these days.
I can't spell SQL.
Yeah, you don't know what that means. He's like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds very interesting.
Isn't that The Empire Strikes Back? Isn't that a sequel?
Something like that. It's very similar.
To add on to Kelly, the organization that I'm working with right now, we created dashboards for each of their supervisors for their team that does show trending over time, and it is using Epic. So they are looking at a variety of things, but they created individual user productivity dashboards. And then if you update your scoring, then you have a lot more flexibility in looking at effectiveness as well. But you have to make sure that you update your scoring, which will say that these different activities are worth more than others, and that will make it a lot more robust for you. But there is a lot more in their later releases that make it a lot more usable.
What do you mean by update your scoring, Angie? That's like
It's
in
like-
in Epic, like in the module, like
Yep,
what
it's
you
basically
count?
saying, yeah, it's like, is a phone call with a payer worth more than a account note versus a claim resubmission versus a correction or something like that. You go through those different activities that staff perform and determine their weight compared to each other. And then based off of that, you can include that in the reporting to see, are they adding value or just doing useless touches? And you can also then just compare number of accounts touched, number of errors worked, number of claims that got out the door. And if you have your staff working denials, it also can show recovery. So it can show, did this effort that they did result in payment afterwards? So that's another thing that the Epic group has been improving in their reporting lately.
And but that's only an HB, Kelly said. Is that correct?
They have some of that available in PB2. Unfortunately, how you do all that is still separate and different, but they have some scoring in professional billing as well. Their recovery reporting is not as good, but they just moved to a different model of denials in Epic in their later versions to set the stage for that, is my understanding. So
Yeah,
it
we
depends on
never-
your version.
We haven't had a lot of good, we mess with those weights and I never like it. So to me, you work something, you have to write a note. So you get credit for writing a note, and then I'll retrospectively say what you wrote a note on, did it get paid? So we're very simplistic, but it works.
Yeah. It all depends on what you're like Kelly said, what you're looking for, but they are making more improvements on that and counting it a little bit better. So it was definitely not as robust in the past, and it's trending in the right direction. But yeah.
Excellent. All right. Anybody else?
Did you see Kaylin's question for Jay?
Yeah, we tried to. Jay didn't have enough. They just started elective, so we don't have enough data. Yeah, we asked him about that. All right. Well, excellent call. Thanks everybody for joining. Kelly, can you stay on for a few minutes? Got a question for you. Otherwise, cool.
Appreciate being included, Ben.
Yeah, no worries. All right, everybody, have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Try to
Ben.
get
Thanks, everybody. Stay safe.
Get some
Stay well.
sun. We'll see you later.
Stay healthy.